Thank you, sir.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much. It is great to be with you. In Reno land, there's a pretty morning this morning for sure. Sun coming over the mountains, and really delight to be with you. And such a large crowd, because you do indeed represent an important association. I wanted to be with you in this conference to celebrate and emphasize the importance of the work you do. And thank you, Mo, for that kind introduction. We remember his leadership in Alabama, and he's doing a great job for you for sure. I want to thank Don Bridges and Archie Hodge for their service, and have to say I'm pleased to see that my home state of Alabama is well represented here today. I'm told we've got nearly 30 attendees here from the Yellowhammer State, so War Eagle, Roll Tide, how you feel about that. And thank you all for keeping our communities safe. Before I say anything else, I'd like to say congratulations to the award winners. Each one of you have gone above and beyond the call of duty, and each one of you has an inspiring story to share. Congratulations to Deputy Blaine Gaskell of St. Mary's County, Maryland, who stopped a school shooter within seconds of him opening fire. You saved a lot of lives that day. Deputy James Long of Marion County, Florida, heard a gunshot at his school, and within 3 minutes, he had the suspect in custody. I'm sure that was maybe the longest 3 minutes of your life, but great job, James. And just a month ago, Officer Mark Dallas of the Dixon, Illinois Police Department confronted a shooter who was about to enter the school gymnasium where hundreds of students were practicing for graduation, including Officer Dallas's own son. The shooter fired at him several times, but Officer Dallas neutralized him and kept him from hurting anyone that day. Each one of those kids who was practicing that day walked across the stage the next Sunday. Great work, Mark. And, of course, I want to thank Officer Marvin Tevewa of Maui, our 2018 Floyd Ledbetter School Resource Officer of the Year. Marvin grew up wanting to be a police officer, and for good reason. A school resource officer had mentored him when he was a kid and helped him get his life on the right track. Now he is paying it forward and providing the same kind of mentorship to dozens of kids. Marvin has served for 3.5 years on campus now and has already saved at least one life. One day, he was walking through campus and saw a student lying unconscious on the ground. The student wasn't breathing, did not have a pulse. Thankfully, Marvin is a CPR instructor, and he was able to save her. That student has now graduated. So please join me in thanking Officer Tevuega for his extraordinary service. Thank you, Marvin. Marvin is a pretty good singer and ukulele player, I understand. So if he gets tired of this business, another career out there maybe, Marvin. But I think Marvin's story is also the story of so many other officers around the nation. I'm sure that many of you could point to police officers whom you looked up to when you were growing up. I know I can. And our SROs every day provide counsel, advice, and just listen to students. Perhaps those are not dramatic things, but they can be life-changing events for some young people. I'm not sure you saw this, but there was a survey a few months ago that showed that more and more of our young people want to go into law enforcement. According to the survey, it used to be the number 10 dream job for kids 12 and under. Now it's number 3 overall, and for boys it's number 1. Athletes dropped down, police went up. I think that's a good event. I feel good about it. It tells me that we're all doing something right. And when I travel the country, and we're doing that a lot, I feel the positive experience among our police community. I think it's because of officers like you. These kids probably know a law enforcement officer personally, maybe a neighbor or one of their friends, parents. They know someone like you at school. They see how noble a calling it is to serve and protect. And I'm proud to say that in this Department of Justice, we understand that. We back the blue. That's why when there's a tragedy, thank you. That's why when there's a tragedy, we believe it is our responsibility to be there for you, to have your back. And after the Parkland shooting, the Department of Justice was able to provide more than $1 million in emergency funding to the officers of Broward County, Florida, who are working overtime in the wake of that terrible tragedy. And today, I'm announcing that the Department of Justice will provide $2 million in funding to Nevada to help rebuild after October's shooting in Las Vegas, which was the deadliest mass shooting in American history and which took the life of an off-duty police officer. This grant is in addition to the $1 million we already announced back in October. We recognize the heroic work done by police that day and the constant effort poured out in the weeks afterward. President Trump is the strongest supporter of school resource officers that's ever sat in the White House. This administration understands and values the safety that you provide our children. At the direction of President Trump, the entire government has put renewed attention on this issue. We at the department are investing in you in many ways, and in particular by providing funding for cities and states to hire school resource officers. Every year, we help hire hundreds of police officers across America. Under the President's leadership, we're channeling this grant funding to cities, states, and tribes that want to hire resource officers. We're also offering firearms training as you requested. Earlier this month, I announced the Department of Justice's first grants under the Stop School Violence Act, which President Trump signed into law. Under this new law, the Department of Justice will provide $50 million to train teachers and students and to develop threat reporting systems. We think that can be very helpful. These grants will serve both safety and peace of mind. Today, I'm announcing another $25 million for better training and for technology to improve emergency reporting. We think that can be very beneficial. We made these grants because we were listening to you. We held numerous meetings and conferences. Just last Thursday, I participated with Education Secretary Betsy DeVos and top officials from the Department of Homeland Security and Health and Human Services in a conference taking testimony from experts on cyberbullying, something we didn't have in Camden, Alabama, when I was going to school. We had bullying, but not cyberbullying. Violent video games and media contagion. Very serious issues. I thought we got a great panel. There were differences of opinion, but there were much agreement also. So I believe this funding is going to make you more effective, and that will make our children and our country safer. And the safety of children is important, all our children. You may not know that our government spends large sums of money each year to protect and care for unaccompanied alien children who are recklessly sent to the United States by family members or others. It's $1 billion a year. Of course, this is a generous country, but word got out that we were not prosecuting the adults who came into this country as long as they brought a child with them. They weren't being prosecuted. Predictably, the number of people illegally entering with children surged dramatically in 14,000 in 2013 and 75,000 in 2017, last year. A five-fold increase in just 4 years. So under this policy, adults and children were simply being apprehended and released into the country. Some might come back for court, some didn't come back for court. If we refuse to prosecute these adults for illegal entry, as many of our critics want us to do, that would be a disservice, I think, to the people of this country. It would be an insult to those who come here legally, waiting their turn, making their application. And most importantly, it would encourage, and has already encouraged, more adults to bring more children illegally on a dangerous journey that puts these children at great risk. The President has made this clear. We're going to continue to prosecute those adults who enter here illegally. We are going to do everything in our power, however, to avoid separating families. All federal agencies are working hard to accomplish this goal. Especially, we take a special pride and extend a great effort with our partners at Health and Human Services who take care of the children that are here. And it's important to remember these adults are only being arrested because they chose not to enter the country at any of the many ports of entry where they could have applied for asylum lawfully. But many do not apply for asylum, of course, and our courts find that 80% of those who do file for asylum aren't qualified for it and do not merit that relief. But there would be no crime, no arrest, and no families that apply when they come through the ports of entry. They're kept together. So this is the important thing. We have a lawful system to enter the country even as a family. It's not a crime if you enter the country at the ports of entry. We're talking about entrances out in the deserts, remote areas, dangerous areas, people bringing children. That should not be happening as it is in the United States. And while we want to keep these families together, we need Congress to act. We really do. Some of you may know this, but under the court ruling from California called the Flores Agreement, Homeland Security is not allowed to detain illegal alien children with their parents for more than 20 days, even while their immigration cases are pending. So let me tell you, this is a difficult and frustrating situation. I have spent hours, days, months, so is our legal, working with Homeland Security, working with Border Patrol, our ICE officers, trying to deal with the loopholes and problems that are created in our system. And lawyers over the years have developed more and more clever ways to frustrate the normal expected enforcement of these laws. So on Wednesday, President Trump ordered me, as Attorney General, to seek a change in the court ruling, the Flores case. And we filed our request for relief with the court the next day. But Congress could help us tomorrow. We're going to need Congress's help. And we've also seen an increase in children being sent by themselves because of the incentive in our broken system. Get this. More than 80% of the children crossing our borders are coming by themselves without parents or guardians, often sent with a paid smuggler. And we can only guess how many never make it to our border during that dangerous journey. 80% come that way. Children have indeed borne much of the burden of our broken immigration system, and the children you serve in your schools are too. They are watching as their friends and even their family members are getting involved in drugs, getting trapped in the funnel, the vortex of addiction that so many of them have such a difficult time breaking out of. And that's being fed, this addiction, by drug cartels taking advantage of our porous southern border. The vast majority, I think you well know, vast majority of fentanyl, methamphetamine, heroin, cocaine in this country came here across our southern border. That means that tens of thousands of Americans, including far too many children, are being killed shootouts and drug-dealing gangs, also from overdose deaths, because we do not have a secure border. This country has never, ever seen the number of overdose deaths that we are seeing today, and many are young people. And Mexico needs to do more. The President has made this clear, and he's right, to reduce these dangers if we are to continue to have a positive relationship with our partners to the south. These drug cartels know our laws, they take advantage of our generosity, and they're only happy to use children to smuggle their drugs into the country as well. Think about this. In just 4 days, at the end of March, Customs and Border Protection apprehended 5 juveniles who were allegedly smuggling fentanyl, the killer drug. Between the 5 of them, they allegedly had more than 35 pounds of fentanyl, enough to kill millions of people. And of course, many children have been directly victimized by criminals who take advantage of the broken immigration system. Last May, a Guatemalan man who illegally came to the country was sentenced to 50 years in prison for sneaking into a 6-year-old girl's bedroom in Tennessee, then molesting her. He also filmed it. A few weeks later, they found him hiding under her bed. You might be interested to know that he had been previously apprehended in 2013, but he wasn't detained. He wasn't placed in custody. Was left out, I guess, on bail. He never showed up, surprise, at his removal hearing, was still in the country and committed this crime, and ended up we having to house him for 50 years. Last August, a nanny who was illegally in Danbury, Connecticut, was sentenced to 15 years in jail for brutally abusing a 3-year-old girl in her care. A hidden camera in the household revealed that she repeatedly burned the child's hands on the stove and viciously beat her. And just last week, the department secured the conviction of an illegal alien from Honduras who tried to coerce an underage girl in Louisiana into sending him pornographic images of her. He's now going to jail for at least 15 years. So there are many other stories and too many other young victims. These criminals shouldn't have been here. These children shouldn't be victims. They should have been protected by a fair and just immigration system that put their safety ahead of political talking points. We should vet applicants. People aren't entitled to demand entry to the United States. We can't accept everybody that applies, although you should know we admit 1.1 million people to green card status, lifetime residence in the United States with a 5-year or so option to obtain citizenship. No country in the world is close to that. We have 600,000 or 700,000 that come here on visas to work for long periods of time to take jobs in America. Another 300,000 or 400,000 students. We have over 2 million people that come every year. We're talking about illegal entry into the country. That's what the discussion is about in this country. We should vet these applicants. We shouldn't admit anybody that has a criminal history or has been in trouble in the United States before. And those who have those problems are coming through the dangerous pathways and not through our ports of entry. And if someone unlawfully enters our country and commits another crime in addition, especially crimes against children like these, they should be deported after serving their sentence, not protected by sanctuary policies. To have true compassion for our children, we must restore lawfulness in our immigration system and keep them safe, including the immigrant children who are often the targets of the vicious gang MS-13. I hope that you will give particular attention to that gang. They are particularly violent, the likes of which I think we've never seen before. There was an article in the Washington Post last week about a middle school ravaged by MS-13 in Maryland, just 10 miles from the White House. And on Friday, our Department of Justice indicted 11 members of that gang in Virginia for murdering 2 children. And I was in New York, at Islip, New York, and met the parents of the two 16-year-old girls who were, one had just turned 16, one it was 2 or 3 days from it. They offended MS-13. They were both murdered with baseball bats and machetes. And the parents told us that school remained a dangerous place. MS-13 is recruiting children who were sent here as unaccompanied minors. They come here with not roots and minimal connections, and they seek to recruit from them. And some come here and are brought here or sent here by the gangs in Central America to strengthen and replenish the MS-13 gangs. And from communities from Los Angeles to Louisville to Long Island to Boston. And they're able to do so because we do not have a secure southwest border. This is not fair to the children you serve. It's not fair to you. What is the compassionate and right thing to do? The compassionate thing to do, I firmly believe, is to protect our children from drugs and violence, to put criminals in jail and secure our borders. Having an immigration system that has integrity and consistency is right and just and moral. The alternative is open borders, which is both radical and dangerous and is not a realistic prospect for America. And so on that point, there's something I want to say to our men and women, you enforcing our laws. The Department of Justice supports our courageous and patriotic ICE agents, officers, lawyers, and other personnel 100%. Free speech, assembly, and protest will be protected. They are fundamental rights of Americans. But we will not tolerate obstructing law enforcement or committing crimes to deter law enforcement from carrying out their duties. The men and women of ICE carry out their lawful duties every day and will not be prevented from doing so simply because some individuals disagree with their lawful mission. It's a crime to assault or threaten a federal government employee. It's a crime to assault a state or local employee. And the Department of Justice can and will aggressively prosecute violators who target the honorable men and women of our Department of Homeland Security and other agencies. So, in this administration, that's what we are doing. We are going to continue to secure the border. We are going to continue to back the blue, and we invest and will invest in law enforcement. That means we're going to invest in you. And you are a sound investment, indeed, one that pays dividends every day. And so I want to close by thanking all of you once again, not just our award winners, but also to the thousands of unsung heroes who are wearing badges across America. Thank you for committing your lives to this difficult work, but it's noble work, protecting the most innocent, the most vulnerable among us, especially the children of this country. Thank you for your work, and may God continue to bless this country and all that you do. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Attorney General Sessions, we thank you for your commitment to law enforcement and to especially school-based law enforcement and administrators, and we really appreciate you being here. This is a small token of our appreciation from NASRO, and I hope you'll hang that in your office.
I will.
Thank you so much. I really